welcome to this masterclass. My name is Robin, in case you haven't met me before, and I'm just going to give it a few moments while we wait for Facebook to alert people that we've started the masterclass, that it's gone live now, and for people to hop on and find us and all of that normal stuff. But just if you're there and if you're tuning in, you can hear me, let me know. I want to make sure, because the way that Facebook has changed lives, at least the dashboard is looking very different from me to how it used to look. And I just want to make sure that I'm on the right microphone, that you can hear me, that you can see me, that we're all good to go. And let me know where you are in the country and how the weather is for you. We've got beautiful sunshine here again after, typical UK weather, isn't it? We think we've got spring and then we're back to winter, and then we think we've got spring, and then I heard yesterday somebody had a tornado in their back garden and it's caused a load of issues with their roof. It's ruined their greenhouse. All the garden furniture is thrown higgledy-piggledy everywhere. But today, thankfully, we have some sunshine again, and it feels like it's going to warm up and be a beautiful day. I hope it is with you too. So, hoping that people are now joining and that you can see and hear me, I'm going to make a start because I've just set this aside for an hour and there is quite a lot to get through. And I want to allow some time for questions possibly at the end as well, if you've anything that you'd like to ask from what I share today. So, as I say, welcome to the masterclass. It's so lovely to have you all here for the masterclass and in the group. And also just to say that I have a set of PowerPoint slides that go along with today's presentation, but because of Facebook and probably more my technical expertise, I've decided just to speak to you directly this morning and to share the slides in the group as a file, which will go up after the masterclass today. So that'll be available for you. Hopefully you'll be able, it's a Dropbox link, so you should be able to access it, and hopefully then any links that are on the slides you'll be able to just click. But if you have any problems with that at all, just give me a nudge and I'm very happy to send it to you as an email instead, or whatever way works best for you. So I'll, without further ado, make a start. And I wanted just to let you know a little bit about myself and why I've decided to offer this masterclass. And really it's because of my work with an organisation called FAST, and that stands for Frontline Assistance for Stress and Trauma, and it was set up by a wonderful woman called Wendy Power Stoughton, probably pretty much exactly 2 years ago at the beginning of the first lockdown, because she had worked with somebody who was a ward sister in a hospital in one of the hotspots in the UK, and was seeing the impact of all that was going on and the fear of what was to come as well. So having worked with that ward sister, Wendy decided to set up a group to collect together a set of volunteers, and there have been 30 of us in FAST, to offer emotional first aid support to everybody who's there on the COVID front lines, NHS, care staff, the emergency services, so ambulance crews, A&E staff, fire brigade, all of these, and police as well. And through my work with that organisation, which has now become a KIC, Community Interest Company, I've seen firsthand some of the impacts of that stress and how it's really affecting people, and they're feeling able to do the job that they have generally gone into because they are such caring people. I know that all of you who work in care, you have such big hearts. You want so much to give and to support other people. You really care. So FAST is giving back to all of you, and also I felt that That's one-to-one support. And I will be sharing a link in the slides. If you haven't heard of FAST, you haven't come across them before, they're available on Facebook, but I will be sharing their web address in the slides that, as I say, will be going up after this session. So having seen the stress that everybody in those roles have been facing, and I know that FAST offers great one-to-one support, but I also wanted to just share some stuff that anybody can access and that's there to be used in between. And a lot of this stuff is going to be shared in FAST anyway, but just to give you the tools that they're there for you to draw on as and when you might feel the need. And also because I have been through burnout myself, and I did this not once but twice. I'm a bit of a slow learner. So having learnt the impacts of stress, having seen that for myself, for me, it manifested as low immune system. So I got glandular fever initially, and that then progressed into ME, a chronic fatigue syndrome. I also experienced migraines and IBS, and it impacted on my sleep patterns, which, as I'm sure you know, has such a wide range of effects in your life. It means that you can be forgetful and irritable and doing those silly things like putting keys in the fridge and putting your milk bottle in the oven or something like that, because you're just not firing on all four cylinders and not thinking straight a lot of the time when we don't sleep well. So I tried the conventional routes to deal with my stress, and personally, having been to the GP and got medication, having been to a counsellor, they weren't quite working for me. I felt that they were keeping me stuck, and looking back on it now, I realise I still felt like a victim. I didn't feel empowered. I didn't feel I was getting the tools I needed to support myself. So going to sessions or taking medication might have been okay in that moment, but it wasn't moving me forward. And I know that this may have been very much of the time that I went to the GP and the counsellor. That was many years ago now. Things may have moved on, but not maybe in all situations. And it's not always easy to access support and counselling. What do you do in between? Either when you're waiting for an appointment or you're in between appointments, how can you support yourself and how can you build your own resilience? And having learnt how to do that, I'm passionate about sharing it with other people so that they too have the tools, and so that for them as well, having gone myself from a space of feeling hopeless and miserable, and that I had no ability to change that situation, and realizing I did. I had all that I needed. All the resources were available to me. I just needed to find the way to tap into them. That's what I want to share. I want to share with other people the way to tap into those resources so that you too have them there at your fingertips, ready to use as and when you need them. Because life's always throwing us curveballs. Over the last 2 years, it's been a pandemic, and then we've got the war in Ukraine currently. There's always something going on. For me, I think that balance is so important in our lives, but at the same time, I don't think of it as a noun. I don't think we achieve balance. I think it's a verb. I think it's something that we are constantly readjusting our balance and finding ways to be in balance again with all that comes at us from all the sides as we go through just day-to-day life. So basically, that's why I've created this masterclass, and that's why I want to share what I'll be covering today with you all. So the aims and objectives that I've got for today are to give you an insight into what's going on in your own body when you're feeling stressed, to help you to develop your own personal, I call it a body vocabulary, so that you know when stress is starting to build. The earlier we catch that, the less effort it takes to address it. the longer we leave it, the more of an impact it has, the more it affects our well-being on all levels, physical, emotional, cognitive, and the more effort, therefore, that we need to put in, and probably the more time as well, before we can start to feel better again. And also how to practice self-care most effectively. We can again use that body vocabulary to tune in and know, is this practice that I'm using supporting me? And how can I optimize that using various different practices at different times, in different ways perhaps? So we'll be looking at that as well. And also to give you the tools, tips and techniques that you can use, just take away from today and put into practice immediately to start feeling better. But I wanted just to start with some myths around self-care. Because I know that quite often if we talk about self-care, the things that come to mind first of all might be, oh, a nice warm bath, maybe with some candles, and I'll put on some of my favourite relaxing music, and I'll have a glass of wine. And all of those things are fine, but they are only scratching the surface. And we can't always step straight into a nice warm bath. If the stress we're experiencing is at work, that's not something that's accessible to us in the moment. So what can we do then? And how can we make our self-care practice deeper and more profound, that it's really addressing the underlying issues, not just the surface feelings of stress? So sometimes we think of it just being the fluffy stuff. And fluffy stuff is good. It's good to have a nice warm bath and add some candles and some music and all of that. I'm not saying that's not good to do, but just it's more than that. I think that self-care benefits by being something much more than that. By all means, engage in those things, but add some of the other things I'll be sharing as well. So it's not just the fluffy stuff, and therefore it can go deeper than maybe you've experienced from the warm bath or the nice cup of tea. Those things are good, as I say, but we can go deeper and we can address underlying root issues as well. It's not just the superficial stuff. So sometimes we think of self-care having to be expensive. But I want to share that it doesn't. So yes, by all means, we can have a massage, but the cost of that can build up. And if you want to have a regular massage, again, that's great. But sometimes if finances don't allow for that, what else can you do? We think that it has to be time consuming. And yes, again, if you're having a bath, that can take time. If you're booking in a massage, it takes time to go and to be there for the whole of the session of the massage and then come back again. And again, that's great. But if you don't have the time for that, what can you do? How can you support yourself if you need something right now, in this moment, instantly, and you need it to be quick? Because I think when we think that self-care is going to be expensive or it's going to take time, we put it off. Oh, I will do it when? I'll do it when I have some free time. I'll do it when I book my next annual leave. But in saying that, it just drops further and further and further down the to-do list. And if we're saying things like, I'll do it when I've got the money, or I'll do it when I've got the time, and we're not feeling that we've got the time or the money, when are we going to feel that we've got those resources? Because again, life comes in and it just, our priorities, if we're not making self-care a priority, the money's going to go, the time's going to go, until we actually sit down and say, no, self-care is my priority. That's where I'm going to put whatever resources I need to put into it. But at the same time, knowing that it doesn't have to take any more time. We can build it in to everything that we do. And again, I'll be looking more at that as we go along. So thinking things like, I don't have the time, it's difficult to fit it in. I just want to show you ways that you can build it in to everything that you do. Because I think when we develop the body vocabulary that I was talking about, we can begin to notice when we're feeling stressed. We can know how we feel when we feel good, and we can know how to get from one to the other. And we can know which tools to choose that we can just put into place straight away. And I'll be sharing some tools that you can do that with. But also, when we are making this time for ourselves, when we're making ourselves a priority, and we feel how good it is to do that, it becomes second nature to just put it into everything that we do. Because we feel so uplifted, and we feel we've got so much more to give, so much more of ourselves, so much more stamina and resilience, and it just ticks all of the boxes, really. But yes, I'll explain more about that as we go along. And I thought I would start by looking at what is actually happening when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling that sense of overwhelm starting to build. And I'd love to know, how does stress feel for you? What happens for you that you notice, ooh, that's me beginning to feel a bit stressed, or perhaps that's me already in full stress and overwhelm. And for me personally, as I mentioned earlier, I had migraines, so I'll get headachy if I'm feeling stressed, because I think I carry a lot of my tension in my shoulders and my neck. And certainly when I was younger, my mum always used to say that my shoulders were up somewhere around my ears if I was stressed. So just something to notice about yourself. Are you somebody who carries your tension in your neck and your shoulders? Do your shoulders creep upwards the more stressed you feel? Do you tend to get headachy? Because that'll often be a sign that that's where you're carrying your tension. I also had IBS, because another place I hold my tension is in my gut. And, in my whole digestion then suffers. And I'll talk more about why that might be in one of my later slides. Rushes of adrenaline, yes, thank you, Wendy. And a churning tummy, very much. It's that sense of butterflies. People talk about feeling butterflies in their stomach, or their mouth goes dry, or their palms are clammy. Those can all be signs of stress as well. I mentioned also earlier poor sleep. And we might not immediately think that this is due to stress, but if your brain is whirling, and so you wake up maybe in the middle of the night and you've got lots of thoughts buzzing around in your head and you can't get back to sleep, or you just can't get comfortable, you can't find any position in which you feel like you can relax, this can be a sign that your day has been stressful and you haven't yet released that stress in order for your body to relax and for you to benefit from a deep night's sleep, a really good, refreshing night's sleep. And another one can be that you sleep, but you wake up in the morning and you still feel that you haven't really benefited. You're still just as tired as you were when you went to bed. I mentioned being forgetful, irritable. These are also signs of stress. And for me personally, one of the maybe more cognitive or emotional things that I experience rather than the physical is that need to be in control, because everything feels out of control. So I become a bit of a control freak when I'm stressed. I also feel fearful and anxious. So people can get things like palpitations when they're stressed. And my internal dialogue becomes very critical and negative, and that sort of imposter syndrome of who do I think I am? How do I think I can do this? I have nothing to give people. I'm not good enough. All of that becomes even more pronounced if I'm stressed. So that's something that I have started to notice, and therefore it's a little alarm for me. Oop, I'm getting stressed. I need to do something to support myself. I need to look at what tools I've got at my disposal and which ones will help me best in this situation. But also remembering that self-talk and those feelings in our body, they're there for a reason. Basically, our body and our internal dialogue is just trying to keep us safe. And I want to really talk about this because often when we feel these things going on in our body, we have a sense of something's going wrong, and the feeling of anxiety in itself can trigger that feeling. Something's wrong, something's not right, I'm in danger. And particularly when we're in anxiety and we start to breathe from the top part of our chest, those shallow breaths that actually send a feedback loop to the rest of our body saying, panic, something's wrong, panic, panic now. Whereas if we can notice that that's what we're doing and start to engage in some of the self-care techniques that I'm going to share with you, but even just breathe from lower down, belly breaths, diaphragm breaths, that can send the feedback loop to the body. It's okay, I'm safe. It's okay. And as I say, the body's just trying to keep you safe. That's all it is. The negative self-talk, again, is just trying to keep you safe. So maybe saying, oh, you're not good enough, is trying to keep you from a situation that feels scary, that feels vulnerable, that feels exposed. So we can say, thank you, internal voice, thank you, body. I've taken that message on board, but it's okay. I've got this. So listening, not dismissing how we're feeling, not trying to push it down, cover it up, because it doesn't go away. It's still there. And part of the problem when we're feeling things in our body is because we haven't listened. And our body starts with a whisper. If we're not hearing that whisper, it'll just turn up the volume to the point where we can't maybe even carry on. I had a friend years ago, she was very, very stressed at work, and one morning she woke up and she couldn't get out of bed. Her back had gone. I myself, as I said, I had ME and chronic fatigue syndrome. I ended up in a wheelchair and then in bed for 2 months. I couldn't do anything. And that was because my body said, you've been pushing too long and too hard and you're not listening. I'm going to make you stop. I'm going to make you listen. I'm going to make you take the time for the rest that you need. Because it's trying to take care of us. It's not attacking us. It's not failing. It's not going wrong. We don't need to be at odds with it. We don't need to worry about it unduly. We just need to listen and to take the rest and the care that it's asking of us. So, having looked at the signs of stress and how to recognize it in your body and to know that it's beginning to build so that we can take action to support ourselves, let's then look at what do you find stressful? Because there are things that we probably find stressful in common, but there are also things that will be unique to you because of past experiences, because of the way that you interpret and view the world, because of your internal beliefs and your framework. So what is stressful for you? So feel free to pop things in the comments or just to think about this and to pick out a few things to be aware of for yourself. And for me, what stresses me is trying to juggle too many things at one time, trying to multitask. And I know that women are supposed to be good at this, but I find it stressful, and particularly if it's around noise, if there are lots of different noises going on at the same time that seem to be wanting my attention. So in the evenings, my husband will often turn on the television and he'll also be looking at Facebook, clicking on videos, watching them, juggling too many things. Yes, Wendy, I completely empathise. So my husband often, as I say, will have the television on, he'll be watching Facebook, listening to videos that are on there, so there are two sounds that are conflicting, and I might be sitting there as well trying to catch up on a few things at the end of the day, and it all just feels too much. So I need just have the television on or the video that you're watching on Facebook on, but not both, please. Or go off to another room so that it's nice and quiet and I don't have those kind of interruptions because voices, human voices, we are geared, we are programmed to listen to voices in case there's an important message within that. And then maybe a little bit of fear of missing out there too, FOMO, that I can't just switch it off. So that's something that I know I'm aware for myself. Trying to do too many things, particularly if it's listening to too many things or hearing too many things at once. Also, spending long hours in front of a computer screen. I know that's not good for me. I really noticed that at the end of last year, having had the 18 odd months of lockdown where all my work suddenly was via the computer screen, via Zoom. And I know that a lot of people have been talking about being zoomed out. So that's something that I certainly felt very much for myself. And numbers. I'm not really a fan of numbers, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on there for me as to why I don't like numbers and maths. And I know that it's a common one for other people as well, because maybe it brings back memories of school and maths teachers or exams or whatever. But I don't do my accounts for that reason. I pay an accountant to do them for me. And I know that there are lots of online tools that you can use and software and everything that practically does it for you. But my feeling for myself is that I don't want the stress, I don't want the hassle. Somebody else can do that for me, thank you very much. So numbers for me are something that I can find very stressful. So I have a slide around this which shows a stress bucket, if you've ever come across that term or that concept, where we all have a certain capacity for stress. But there's more stress, as I said, life throws us curveballs. There's more stress coming in every day, little bits and pieces, little things that happen, something somebody says, something that maybe a job that we're given to do that we find stressful. Lots of things happening that are like stress coming in at the top of the bucket. So the level of stress is going to keep rising unless we do something about it. In the diagram, there's a little tap on the side of the bucket. So if we can access that tap, we can open it, reduce the stress, and therefore we still have a certain capacity in our bucket. If, however, we aren't able to access the tap, we aren't able to open that for whatever reason, or we're not aware of it, we're not giving it the time and the attention to open that tap, the level's just going to keep rising. And if we're in a situation like, say, if we're at work and there are lots of demands going on, that was something else from the previous slide, sorry, I forgot to mention. Overwhelm basically is when we have all of these demands coming at us, one after another, and we don't feel that we have the resources to deal with those demands or the ability to ask for our needs in the situation. So if I'm in a situation where I'm being asked to do one thing after another, after another, after another, and I don't feel able to say, please, can I just have a minute to breathe? Or I just need to pop to the loo, or I just need to find a jacket because I'm feeling cold. If I don't feel that I have the ability to look after my own needs in that situation and to ask for what I need, then I'm going to go into overwhelm. And how we deal with that, say we might turn off our sensitivity or turn down our sensitivity to how we're feeling just to get through. You know, that sense of, or we talk about blinkers on, head down, push on through, just get through to the end of the day, and then, you know, at least I'll be able to go home. I'll be able to get out of this situation that I'm finding so stressful. But when we're doing that, the stress isn't going away, it's still coming in, we're still, the level in our stress bucket is still rising. We just might have kind of disconnected from that feeling so that we can keep going. And then we sometimes feel surprised that one little thing sends us over the edge. We feel, this is where I talked about being irritable before, we feel quite volatile, we feel like just one more thing and I'm going to explode, because our stress bucket is so full. and our body inside is pleading with us, please do something, please help me to offload some of this stress. But if we're not able to listen, we don't feel able to address that in the moment, that's when it becomes a real challenge, and over time really takes a toll on our well-being. For me, the things that I use that open my tap that I really need to remember to engage in for myself are getting outdoors. I love being in nature, and I think for me it's all about the space that I feel in nature. It just allows me to breathe. So it's space, it's fresh air, it's natural light. And often when we're working, or when we're like in lockdown working on a computer screen, it's not natural light. We might be under strip lights, or we've got the computer screen, the monitor. Again, it's not natural light, it's radiation that maybe we're not designed to be in all of the time without a break. It's not good for our eyesight, it's not good for our well-being. So being able just to get outdoors for that natural light. It's also great for our body rhythm, circadian rhythm, to help with our sleep pattern as well. Fresh air, movement, just being able to move freely, not sitting at a screen all day, or being in rote repetitive movements or restricted movements that might come with a role we're doing at work. And also they've done research to show that nature sounds are very good for our well-being. And the energy of being out in a forest around the trees or near the sea, the sound of the waves, the feel of the ions of the movement of the water, all of these things are so beneficial for our well-being. For me, I also love to spend time with animals, because I find them very restful, and just having time to myself. As I said, too much noise can be stressful for me, so just having time to myself, and again that just feeling of, oh, I can breathe. And I think a lot of people who work in care are very empathic, which benefits you greatly because it helps you to know how to best care for somebody and what they need in that moment and how to support them. But you may also be taking on the stress of the others around you, the stress of the news that you hear on the television or the radio or see on Facebook or wherever it's coming from. So another thing is to take time away from that. Give yourself a break. And we want to know what's going on in the world. We want to keep up to date, but it can really take a toll. So give yourself permission to step away from time to time, and just to allow your energy to settle and your batteries to be recharged. So why is it so important to relax? I've been talking all about stress and the impacts that stress can have on your body. But sometimes isn't stress good? And it can have a place because it motivates us. It helps us to get things done. It gets us out of bed in the morning. If we didn't have a little bit of adrenaline and cortisol, we wouldn't be able to do that. We would just be so chilled and laid back, we would just sleep. So there is a place for some stress in our lives. But when it gets to be the thing maybe that gets you through the day, and you find yourself reaching for another cup of coffee or another sugary snack or energy drink, that's fueling stress. And stress, our bodies are only meant to be in that sympathetic mode for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. And I'm sure that you probably already are aware of this, but even just giving yourself the time, the space, here today, just to acknowledge how this is impacting on you, how stress is affecting you in your life, and that we do need to make time and give attention to our self-care, giving ourselves permission for that. So yes, stress can become quite addictive in a way, because our bodies get used to having that level of adrenaline and cortisol. As I said, we're only meant to be in that state for 10 to 15 minutes of time. It's a survival technique that our body has to give us the fuel we need to fight for our lives or to run away, fight or flight. But we need to balance that out with rest and repair. And unfortunately, we haven't really moved on much from the caveman days when those bursts of energy were essential to us. But now there aren't any dinosaurs or saber-toothed tigers or threats of that physical life or death nature. And yet we are still experiencing those bursts of adrenaline that you mentioned earlier, Wendy. So we've started to see threats and fear in different ways. So the fear of pressure at work, the fear of something, a role or a job that our boss is going to give us that we don't feel we have the skills, knowledge, experience for. Or for me, it's public speaking or standing in front of a camera. I've never liked being in front of a camera. So I find that it used to be stressful, but now I think I've turned that around and it's more exciting. It gives me the butterflies, but it also, where stress is a good thing, it gives me the motivation and so on to do this. But just to be aware that stress is not meant to be where our bodies are always spending their time. And it can, as I said, become addictive because our body gets used to that level of adrenaline and it ramps it up and ramps it up. It's like with any drug. You get to the point where I don't notice that level anymore. I need a little bit more and I need a little bit more. And like I talked about earlier with the breathing, it's sending a message to our body. It gets into a bit of a loop. So we start to feel a bit of adrenaline. We feel a little bit anxious. Our breathing starts to change. So we feel more anxious. So our breathing is changing more. So we feel more anxious. And it just builds up and increases from there until we take action. But we need to notice that it's building. And as again I said earlier, the earlier we can notice that, the less change we need to make, because we haven't gone very far into stress. It's easier to get back to balance. And also just to say that if we have become addicted and we're so used to being in stress, resting and relaxing can feel weird. It feels strange. It's almost the thing that feels off because stress has become our norm. So when we start to pay attention to our bodies, when we start to engage in deep self-care, it can feel weird. It can feel alien. It can feel, no, I need to get back to my norm. I need to get back to my certain amount of adrenaline, because without that, I feel too odd, too different, too alien, and I'm not comfortable with that. So as you start to bring more self-care into your practice, be aware of that and allow for that. It's like anything, giving up smoking. If you feel that you need your nicotine fix because you haven't had your first cigarette of the day, it feels really odd and you just want to reach for the packet. This is just like that. So allow for the fact that you may start by feeling a little bit odd, but the benefits will be so good in the long run. And just to look a little bit very quickly, because I'm sure this is something you're already familiar with, at the effects of stress in terms of our physical bodies when we're in sympathetic versus when we're in parasympathetic, fight or flight versus rest and repair. So in the sympathetic phase, you can see a difference in our eyes because our pupils expand to let in more light to see more so that we can fight or we can flee. And our breathing, as I said, is fast and it's shallow. Our heart pumps faster so we can have those feelings of palpitations, and our blood pressure rises, and our digestion does not work as effectively. Which is why, as you were mentioning earlier, Wendy, we can have that feeling of butterflies in our stomach, because the blood needs to go to the muscles so that we can fight or we can flee. It therefore is taken away from the the things that we don't need right there, right now. So like digestion, we don't need food right now. If we're going to run, we just need to run. Which is another reason why we can feel sick, or we can have IBS, because one of the natural things that an animal will do to lighten its load in order to be able to run faster is to get rid of anything extra that it's carrying inside, that it hasn't digested yet, that it doesn't need. And it'll just get rid of it at one end or the other, or both. So there is a physiological, biological reason why these things are happening, but it doesn't serve us because it leaves us feeling icky, unwell, uncomfortable. But just to be aware of those are why the body feels that way. It's actually doing what it's designed to do. It's not going wrong. It's not failing. It's not attacking itself. It's just doing what it's designed to do in order for it to get to a state of feeling safe. But perhaps we haven't learnt to look at it that way. Perhaps we have learnt just to see it as uncomfortable and unpleasant, and so we want rid of those feelings. But the best way to get rid of the feelings isn't sometimes the things that we do engage in, the sugary drinks, the caffeine, or a glass of wine, or those other things that maybe aren't serving us in the long run. The best way is to listen, to tune in, to address the issues, to open that tap and let some of the stress out of the bucket. So in contrast, in the parasympathetic, the pupils shrink because we're relaxed. No longer needing to be able to see everything and be on full alert. Our breaths are slower and deeper, sending that feedback loop, all is well. Our heart slows and our blood pressure comes down. Again, you can just feel, can't you, how the body is when it's relaxed. Everything just feels more gentle. And also, this is where digestion can work most effectively, which means that our food is being broken down to a point where it can be fully assimilated, so that we can extract all of the nutrients that we need. When we're not able to do that, it can lead to things like allergies, because the gut wall is affected, and after molecules that are too large, that aren't yet bioavailable nutrients for the body, get through the gut wall, and the body doesn't recognize them, thinks that there's something alien that it needs to remove from the body, it needs to respond and react to. And that can lead to allergies and allergic responses, intolerances, food intolerances, IBS, like I experienced. So that's why, that's at least part of the reason why it's so important to allow our bodies to go into the parasympathetic. So as I said, it's fight or flight or rest and repair. Our bodies, when they're in fight or flight, cannot engage in rest and repair. We're in either one or the other. And like with the war in Ukraine, they're so busy defending their borders, trying to push back the invaders, that they're not able to repair all the damage that's been done to the buildings, their homes, their cities. And the same with our bodies. If we're feeling that we're in fight, we're on alert all the time, ready to flee or to fight for our lives, in both a metaphorical sense as well as a literal physical sense, then we're not engaging in repair. And our bodies need to repair all the time. There are things, chemicals, stress in itself is impacting on our bodies at all levels, whether that's a small bit of stress or a big bit of stress. Obviously there'll be a relative amount of impact. But we need antioxidants, we need to repair our cells, we need to just engage in basic maintenance. And if we're ill, then we need recovery. We need to sleep at night so that we can recharge our batteries. all of these things require us to be in rest mode, in the parasympathetic. So that's why it's so important to take time for it, because the more time we can give to it, the easier it is for our bodies to get into that state. But I'm noticing that time is really marching on. So I wanted to go on to explain a quick body scan. And just wherever you are, I invite you, if you would like to stand for this or to sit, either way is fine. And I'm just going to talk you through a quick scan from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. And I invite you as well, if you feel more comfortable, to close your eyes. I find that it really helps me to tune in to my body if I have my eyes closed. So just noticing how you feel today. Just tuning in, bringing your attention to your body, starting at the top of your head, your scalp. How does it feel? Just observing and noticing, not trying to label, not putting any labels on anything, that it's good or it's bad, it's right or it's wrong. It just is. So just noticing and observing as you come across your scalp and down onto your forehead, your eye sockets, your nose, your jaw, cheeks, your chin. Where is your tongue in your mouth? And what about your teeth? And then just carry on down through your throat and your neck, your shoulders, and noticing, where are your shoulders? What level are they at today? On down through every vertebra in your spine and each of your ribs, your lungs, all of your internal organs. How is your stomach feeling? And down into your belly. And just checking in with your arms as well. All the way down into your hands. Our hands do so much for us. How are they feeling today? And then bring your attention to your hips and your pelvis. If you're sitting, does it feel that it's evenly balanced on the chair? The weight in each of your bones equally. On down through your thighs, knees, calves, and into your ankles. And your feet. And if your feet are on the floor, just noticing that contact that they have with the floor. If you're standing, noticing here if you're feeling balanced, if your weight is evenly distributed across both of your feet. And just while you're here with your attention on the soles of your feet, feel their connection with the ground beneath you. And then, in your own time, you can open your eyes again. And that exercise is something that you can do on a regular basis, various times throughout the day, just to check in with yourself and just to notice, as I said, not labeling, but just noticing, how does that feel today? And as we do it over a period of time, you can kind of make comparisons, like almost keeping a body diary, building that vocabulary. How does that feel today compared to yesterday? Where did I feel maybe more tension or tightness or discomfort or comfort yesterday compared to how I feel today? And that helps you to build, as I say, the vocabulary, the knowing of, oh, this feels this way, and that feels good, or that feels more comfortable than how it felt another time. And you can start then to notice, oh, today I'm feeling a little bit more tightness or tension. Today I feel like I'm carrying maybe a little bit more stress. So then, right, I can take action for that. Or today, things are feeling really good. And we can explore, what was it that made that shift, that I feel good today? What's created that response in my body? How can I have more of that? What was it that made me feel better than I was feeling before? How can I bring that back again and again? And so it's good to look at what are the feelings in your body that indicate stress for you. And those may be physical feelings, they may be emotional feelings. And on the slides, I have a set of kind of like post-its that I've gathered when I've run a workshop that I do called Stop Striving, Start Thriving, where we do a body scan like this. And then I get various different people's responses on what stress feels like for them. So some of the examples would be that my body feels heavy. It feels painful. My mood feels low. I feel tightness. I feel alone. I feel small. I feel exhausted and hopeless. And in contrast, I've done the same for how things feel when people feel good. What does that feel like in their body? So again, tuning in for you. How does it feel for you? Because this is such an individual thing. But people have said things like, I feel happy. I feel light. I feel relaxed. I feel uplifted, connected, expansive, energized, hopeful. And now I want to get to some self-care tools. So I've got a set of 8 different tools that I'm going to talk you through briefly today. And as I say, this live will be in the group, so please do come back, watch it again, and look at the slides, because there's a little bit more information there that you can use to refer to remind you of the different tools that I'm going to cover today. And the first one is around breathing, which I mentioned several times already. But breathing is so important because, I mean, obviously we need breath to live. Breath is life. And when we are breathing in a way that's supporting our body, it makes such a difference. When we're breathing in a very stressed way, it has a huge impact on how we feel and can develop into things like palpitations, panic attacks, feeling really unwell, and maybe even the panic attack feelings of, am I going to die? Is this what's happening in my body? Because it just ramps up and escalates the feelings of anxiety and tension. And one of the simplest things that we can do to support our own breathing is just to put a hand over your heart and just notice your breathing, feeling it coming into your body and then leaving your body again. Noticing, breathing in through your nose, noticing the feel of the air coming into your nostrils, and then breathing out again, either through your nose or through your mouth. And just feeling the air leaving your body, because that's being mindful. It's bringing your attention and your focus to the breath. And when you're doing that with full attention on your breath and how you're feeling, the brain can only cope with so many things at once. And so if you're feeling the breath, you're watching the breath, observing the breath, you no longer have attention for the things that are stressing you. It grounds you, it centers you, And in doing that, it takes us out of that hamster panic mind and gives us greater clarity. So it's a simple exercise, but so effective and profound, really. So again, just noticing your breath and being mindful about the breath. And another way that you can do that is using the hand breath, breathing with your hand, which is a good one to do if you're finding it difficult to just tune in to how you're feeling and trying to breathe from your belly just by the breath itself, because this gives you something to focus on and again takes your attention away from the stressful things and gives you something that is your then new focus of attention. So just putting your hand up and following the outline, breathing in as you move up each digit and out as you breathe down. In as you breathe up, in as you move your finger up the finger, breathing out as you go down. In and out. In and out. And there's the sensation then as well, the physical sensation of the finger, from feeling from this finger and also feeling from the hand as you go around. And to do that as slowly as you can. And that really helps, again, to ground and center. Bring your attention back to the present moment. Moving on to another exercise technique that you can use. And again, there's a slide for this showing with a diagram. This is Jin Shin Jitsu finger holds, and the diagram in the slide shows all 5 fingers and the different energies that it works on when you hold the fingers. But I'm going to focus on one particular hold. And this is something that you can do anytime, anywhere, so long as you've got your hands free. And I'll be looking at other things as well, because I know that when you're at work, you don't always have your hands free. So that's maybe a time when you can do just the normal breathing, when you're focusing on the feeling of your breath coming in and out of your body. And if you breathe out with a longer breath, so that the out breath is longer than the in breath, that's another way to help send that feedback loop to your body. All is well. It's okay. I'm safe. So yes, if you take the first finger and your middle finger and hold those 2, that again is supporting your energy. It's sending that message. It's okay. I'm okay. And even repeat those words internally or out loud. It's okay. I'm safe. In this moment, all is well. Very grounding, very centering, bringing you back to the present moment. Again, getting you out of that hamster mind where it's spinning around, or monkey mind, and giving you greater clarity. And another one is the middle of the hand, the palm, just to massage that gently. And you'll see on the diagram it says that's for harmony. So bringing the whole of your energies back into balance. Another thing to do is called tapping, which is what we use in fast. And a couple of great points are just below your collarbone. So you can tap on these, or you can gently massage them, or even just put pressure on them. Just gentle pressure. And again, you can say the phrases, whatever you find works for you, but I love, even now, just in this moment, I am safe and all is well. In this moment, right here, right now, I am safe and all is well. And that works on the same energy lines as traditional Chinese medicine. So it's like acupuncture, it works in the same way as acupuncture, but you don't need the needles. And you have the tools that you need with you at all times, that you can just do this. Anytime, if you're nipping to the loo or you're on a walk, if you don't want to do this because you don't want people to see, then use the finger holds. Other points that you can tap on are the inside of your wrist. So you can even do this in a meeting, just having your wrist under the table and just tapping gently, or on the fingers of your hand. And it doesn't matter left, right, swapping over part way through, it's all fine. So it's just on either side of the nail bed there. Either saying those phrases or just breathing. And that helps, it sends a signal to your amygdala. It's okay. It's safe. I'm safe. All is well. Mindfulness is another great exercise that you can do. The breath work that I shared at the beginning can be done, well, is being done mindfully, but you can do mindfulness with anything. Just taking a sip of coffee. How does it smell? What does it taste like? How does it feel as you swallow and it goes down your throat? How does it look? So mindfulness, bringing all of your senses into play. And the slide that I've used for this shows mandarin oranges, because for me, something like that is really good to do a mindfulness exercise. It has all of the senses brought in. You can see the vibrant colour of the orange. You feel the texture and see the texture of its skin. As soon as you start to mark that skin, you put a nail in or whatever, you get the smell, the citrus smell, and how evocative that is. Our sense of smell is one of the greatest memory trigger that we have. So every time I see a mandarin, smell a mandarin, it takes me back to Christmases as a child. Or warm evenings by the fire, those sorts of images. So, and again, there's the taste, there's the sharp, tangy taste of an orange. So all of the senses are there when we eat them, but that's a great way that we can bring in mindfulness, that we can exercise all of those senses in our body, bringing ourselves again back to the present moment, back to being grounded and centered, and bringing us to that point of, I'm here, it's okay, I'm safe. And I have greater clarity in my mind again, rather than that panic hamster wheel mind. And then I'm sorry I'm slightly over time, but I hope you can either bear with me or come back and watch the rest of this video. The next thing that I wanted to share is getting outdoors into nature. I've already mentioned that this is one of my main ways of helping me to relax. And I have a wonderful quote from a woman called Phyllis Curott, and she said, "When we look to nature, it's constantly revealing all sorts of wisdom that brings us back to the lost parts of ourselves." And lost parts could be parts that maybe we've disconnected from. I talked earlier about disconnecting from our sense of stress because it just feels too much. We put the blinkers on, head down, push on through. And as a child of the 80s, that was very much what we were being taught to do. Push on, feel the burn, carry on going. But we've realised now that that is not a good way to be. It's not a good way to operate. It's not sustainable. So there can be that form of, that part of me is lost. I've disconnected from that part of me. And there may be other things. There may be memories that we found too painful or too, they bring shame. Feelings of shame are connected to them. But nature gently brings us back to those things and helps us to reconnect with them, re-assimilate them, learn what they have to share with us without the pain, just with non-judgmental acceptance and allowing. So nature really is, I can't say enough about what nature gives to us. So just getting outdoors, getting the movement, getting the natural light, resetting our circadian rhythms, feeling the energy of nature all around us, listening to the nature sounds. I don't know if you can pick up, I don't know if the microphone's getting the sound of the bird song here just today. It's really so good to listen to those sounds, the wind in the trees, the ocean, a stream. All of these things are so good. I think because we are nature ourselves, we are a part of that entirety. And it's like with the food that we eat, the food that is right for us, species specific diet as people talk about, but the food that gives us the nutrition we need is actually, our body is geared, it has the receptors and the enzymes and things that are appropriate for those foods. That's why they are good for us. And it's the same, we have, I guess, kind of emotional receptors for the sounds of nature, for the energy of nature. And that's why she refreshes us and restores us and rebalances us so exquisitely. Another really good exercise is to journal. And this is where, alongside of the body scan and other techniques that I've mentioned, we can begin to go deeper. We can begin to deepen our self-care practice and make it much more profound. Because when we write about how we're feeling, it gives us a way to express our feelings. It gives us a way to step back from those feelings and observe. So often when our feelings are right there, raw in the moment, and we're right in the thick of it, they're too big, they're too overwhelming. We can't be objective because we're too in it, we're too subjective. But these tools, tips and techniques will help to allow you to take that step back, to be an observer, to not be in the drama, but rather to be a watcher of the drama. And then you can start to pick out patterns, to notice things, to notice maybe what makes you stressed, what helps you to relax, what events bring up emotions, activate feelings in your body for you as an individual, and what things help to deactivate and relax and release those for you. So it gives us a sense of objectivity, it gives us more perspective, it helps us to identify patterns. Oh, every time that happens, I feel like this. And that reminds me of when I felt that way before. Maybe as a child, maybe when something particular happened. For me, in my first job, my boss was a bully, and he reminded me of my dad. So every time he shouted or raised his voice or made a decision that I found really uncomfortable for me, it took me right back to when I was a child. But having identified that, I can start then to put things in place for my self-care, and I can start to address, well, what was I feeling at that time? How did I feel when I was being bullied? How can I support myself so that I no longer feel small and insignificant and weak and that I have no control in that situation? How can I support myself to grow, to expand, to feel more empowered rather than disempowered? It can also help us to notice our our emotional moods, what happens to us from day to day. Oh, every time that happens, I feel sad, or when that happens, I feel happy. And what's going on there? Is there a need behind that emotion? we can do the same with food as well. You may have heard of food diaries, where we can notice patterns and behaviours and how we feel after we've eaten. And it's the same with this. When an event happens, how do I feel during? How do I feel after? Do I feel that I need to rush for a sugary snack or rush for caffeine? It just gives us greater insight and understanding and compassion for ourselves, because we begin to realise that I'm behaving in this way, I'm doing these things, I'm responding in this way for a reason. It's not just for no reason at all. It's not because there's anything wrong with me. It's because there is a reason. And once I know that reason, I can start to address it. I can start to support myself around that. So journaling allows us to explore our thoughts, our self-talk, our emotions, the deep questions maybe that come up for us, that it gives us space and time to give to those questions and to start looking for either answers or being okay with not knowing until maybe later when the wisdom becomes known to us. And it records our changes over time so that we can look back and think, oh, right, since I added this to my self-care practice, this has happened and I feel better. Because as we go through day to day, we might not notice, but looking back, we can see how far we've come. And also helps us to see if then I was actually feeling better and now I'm feeling more stressed. I'm feeling more maybe tension in my body, more restricted, or I'm not sleeping as well. What's happened between now and then that has changed things for me? And how can I start to support myself to feel better again? Another one is power truths, also known as affirmations. And there's a slide there to let you know how to create those, what your power truth should look like, what's the best that, the way to write a best power truth that's most supportive for you. So it's keeping it positive, not using any don'ts, shouldn'ts, can'ts or shoulds at all, using the present tense, making sure it's something that you can really believe and feel in your body, and bringing in as many of your senses as you can, because that makes it more real. It's the same with mindfulness, as I was talking earlier. And bringing in gratitude. So as if the situation that you are putting into your power truth that you want to be real is already real, and how grateful you are for that. I'm so grateful that I feel more and more relaxed every day, and it feels wonderful in my body. That sort of thing. And lastly, I just wanted to mention self-talk, because so often we can be our own worst critic, and we say things to ourselves we wouldn't even say to our worst enemy. We beat ourselves up. As I talked about shame briefly earlier, shame is such a huge burden to carry. It's such a horrible feeling in our bodies. And shame is not something that we are born with. It's something that we learn. Unfortunately, people who maybe have been very significant in our upbringing, teachers, mentors, maybe even parents, use shame. And that's not to blame them. They probably use shame because that's the way that they learned. But we know that shame is not a healthy thing for us. It makes us feel horrible. It doesn't really serve any benefits at all. So if our self-talk is shaming us, oh, you look awful today. Look at your hair. What are you wearing? What have you done with your makeup? Those sorts of things that we may be thinking when we look in a mirror. Or telling ourselves, I don't think I can do this. I'm not good enough. Why have I been given this job? I don't have the skills. And maybe we feel that way, but we could change our perception. I've never done that before. Maybe I could learn something new by doing it. Maybe there's somebody I can ask for some tips, some hints, some help, some mentoring. Just feeling into the difference between the I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good enough for this. And I've never done it before, but I can learn. I'm sure there's somebody who can help me. Just feeling into how your self-talk, what emotions that activates for you. And again, this is where the body scanning comes in. If your self-talk is making you feel smaller, heavier, less happy, then there's something behind it that's not serving you. You can look for a need behind that. What is the need? Do I need more support? Am I feeling that I shouldn't be doing this role because I'm feeling unsupported? Is that the issue? Once I know that that's the issue, I can begin to look for the thing that will meet that need, whether that's internally or asking for help externally. Because to ask for help, I think, is one of the best, strongest things that we can do. It's not a sign of weakness at all. So again, just bringing all of these tools together, we can start to build a deeper, more profound, more supportive, uplifting and sustainable self-care practice. And also to look at each one of those, to practice them, to play with them, use them lightly, to see which ones work best for me in which situations at what time. Because you'll probably find that different things work at different times in your life, in different situations in your life, and that's all good, it's all wonderful. Just having all of the different tools that you can choose from, that you have at your disposal, to know that you have them there, and the more you practice them, the more readily available they are to you. So I really encourage you just to play with them and experiment. And if something doesn't feel like it works for you now, put it on a shelf. Don't dismiss it. You might like to come back to it later. It might end up that that's exactly the thing you need at some point further down in the future. So that's the end of the masterclass for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find it helpful. Please do feel free to send me any questions or any comments, anything that you feel I haven't covered in today's session that you'd like me maybe to post about in the group or to run another session for at another time. I'm very happy to do that. So it's just been a taster of what I offer. And if you'd like to know more, or you'd like to get in touch, stay in touch, then please feel free to reach out. If you didn't give me your email address when you signed up for the masterclass, I know that some people did, some people didn't, and that's fine. If you'd prefer not to, that's absolutely fine. But if you would like to stay in touch, I have a newsletter and I have some resources that I can share, then I'm very happy to do that. Just PM me your email address, get in touch, let me know. And also, as I say, I'm going to share these slides. They're probably already shared in the group. I set it to go up at 11 o'clock. The links within those slides are live, so hopefully you'll just be able to click on them. Again, if that doesn't work, just let me know and I'm happy to share anything across to you. There's a link in one of the last slides as well that gives my scheduler, my calendar. So if you'd ever like to have a conversation with me, just click on that link, find a date and a time when we're both free, and it'll set up a Zoom link for us both. And just to say, Wendy, thank you very much for that comment. Thank you so much for being here, for watching, and for your energy here in the group. It's great to have you. And also on one of the later slides, there is my social media if you'd like to follow me. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I have a page and also a group called Wild Wisdom Wellbeing, where I share lots of thoughts around self-care, around just how to look after ourselves, how to make our well-being the best that it can possibly be. And a lot of that links in with the nature wisdom that I mentioned earlier. And Then there's a slide, as I said earlier as well, for a link to FAST and FAST's website. As I say, that's Frontline Assistance for Stress and Trauma. So everybody here, being NHS and care, you are most welcome to take a look at that and take advantage of that offer if you feel that it's right for you. And it offers up to 4, say up to because normally people don't even need 4, but up to 4 sessions with one of the FAST members using EFT and other techniques as well, some of which I've covered today in our session. If you'd like to explore those further, that's a great opportunity. So just click on the link and there's a button there to request support. And lastly, just to say again, a huge thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and for your attention. If you're watching the replay, stick in #replay. And if you have any questions, if there's anything that I haven't covered or not covered in sufficient depth, you'd like to know more, if you want to do that privately with me, absolutely just give me a nudge or send me a request through my calendar and we can meet and have a chat. Or I'm happy to discuss things in the group as well. Because, and you don't have to post your questions in the group if you prefer to post them privately, but I'm happy to share my response in the group. But often people ask a question and somebody else in the group will be thinking, oh, thank goodness they've asked that because I wanted to know the answer to that too. So, you know, the saying of there's no such thing as a stupid question, I completely agree with that. Very happy to take any questions that you might have. And just thank you again. And I hope you find this helpful. Bye-bye for now.